Hi, I'm Shannon Sport with Organizational Learning and Talent Development. And right now, the civil unrest and pandemic that is happening across our nation is causing many of us to feel uncertain and worried about our future. And those feelings of uncertainty may trickle over into the workplace, which may cause us to feel uncomfortable about speaking up and expressing ourselves. In fact, many people feel uncomfortable speaking up and expressing themselves, and it may be due to a lack of psychological safety. That sounds like a scientific term, right? It's actually not that complicated. A professor at Harvard, Dr. Amy Edmondson, coined the term, and she defines it as a belief that a team will not embarrass, punish, or reject us for speaking up to share our ideas, concerns, or thoughts. It also means that people feel the courage and freedom to take interpersonal risk, and they feel open to being vulnerable with each other. And also creating spaces where people feel as though they can have difficult conversations about failures and mistakes and uncertainties. Let me share a story with you that my mother once shared with me. In the early 80s, she was working for a prominent bank in Washington, D.C., and she was recently promoted to a management position. So one day, the executive at her branch approached her about participating in a business meeting at an upscale restaurant across town. So naturally, my mother was excited because she was really looking forward to networking with the other executives at that meeting. Unfortunately, when she arrived to the restaurant, she realized that she was the only female and woman of color in that space. So before diving into business, the decision was made to order lunch. So when the lunch menu arrived, my mother received the menu and realized that the entire menu was in French. So feeling new to the team and not too sure about herself, she chose the first thing that she saw on that menu, which unfortunately turned out to be eggs, and she hates eggs. So she didn't feel comfortable speaking up to the executive at her branch and sharing her concerns. And so what ended up happening was, during the business portion of the meeting, she remained silent. She didn't contribute or offer suggestions or input to further the organization forward. So this story illustrates the importance of psychological safety and creating environments where we all feel safe to speak up and express ourselves. When we are psychologically safe, we feel comfortable being our authentic selves, and we're more willing to speak up to contribute our ideas and suggestions and help our organizations thrive. To build a speak up culture in our workplaces, it's important that we honor different perspectives and help people to feel as though they have a sense of belonging and empowered to contribute to our teams without feeling judged. So how do we create a space where people feel psychologically safe to speak up? Let's start with what you can do personally to build a psychological safety for yourself. So the first tip is to step outside of your comfort zone. You know, sometimes we allow fear to prevent us from speaking up and contributing to our teams when they need us the most. So for example, we may neglect to share ideas during a meeting because we're afraid that those ideas might be rejected or won't be received in a positive manner. Stepping outside of our comfort zones creates opportunities for us to be our authentic selves and breaks us free of limitations that we place on ourselves. The second tip is to find ways to connect to others. Now this can sound a little scary for most of us, especially if we're naturally reserved or we're energized by alone time, but one way that you can build connections with others is by sharing information about yourself during conversations with your teammates, then asking questions to learn more about them. When you intentionally seek to connect with others, it gives them the permission to do the same, and this creates mutual trust, and it can help you and your teammates to feel empowered to take interpersonal risks. The third tip is to build a support system. You know, when professional challenges arise, we sometimes need help overcoming those challenges and putting things back into perspective. One way to overcome your obstacles is by finding a support system or building a support system. Now, ideally, your support system should be a network of people who you can trust to provide guidance and honest feedback on your professional goals. So your network could include your peers, a mentor, your close friends who you trust. But ideally, these people should be individuals who have your best interest at heart, and they're going to help you grow. So those are a few tips for what you can do personally. So let's talk about what you can do to support others. So the first thing is to increase your self-awareness. You know, self-awareness is vital to our professional development and our growth, and also how well we perform in our jobs. So one way that you can be more self-aware is by regulating your emotions and being mindful of how you come across to your teammates. So if you're interacting with your teammates, here are a few things that you can ask yourself. So the first is, how am I coming across to others in this moment? Do I appear open, calm, approachable? Am I intentional about getting to know my teammates? So the second thing is to invite views from different perspectives and backgrounds. And one way you can do this is during team meetings. So when you're in a team meeting, are you noticing that certain people are speaking up and others are not? One way that you can invite the voices of others is to think about these few questions. Ask yourself these questions. So number one, who are you noticing in the room? And whose voices are you hearing during these meetings? Whose voices are you not hearing? What do you notice about the people in the room? Whose voices do you need to bring into that setting? And are you open to the opinions and viewpoints of others when they speak up to share during meetings? You can also support your teammates. And you can do this by making sure that you foster an environment of psychological safety. So one way you can do this is by expressing gratitude. So when your teammates do a good job or you're knocking it out the park, don't be afraid to give them feedback and let them know that you appreciate their efforts. Also, extend grace to others. You know, we've all experienced moments in our careers where we've been frustrated by a teammate. Maybe they did something to make us upset, or they made a mistake on a project and that may have caused some frustration on our teams. In those moments, be mindful that we're all human and we all have our off days, and that impacts how we show up and perform. So in situations like these, it might be helpful to make sure that you extend grace to your teammates and understand that everyone is human. So suspend your judgment and pause before you react. So these are just some simple tips that you can follow to create psychological safety on your teams and boost productivity. You know, it's also important that our teammates feel that they can show up as their authentic full selves. And so it's important that you think about these tips and strategies so that you are creating environments for them to do so. Now, if you're interested in learning more about this topic, or you want a recap of some of the strategies that I shared in this video, I invite you to explore the resources below this video. Thank you for watching.